Welcome to GameStorm, a podcast where I sit down with a new game designer, artist, or creative every episode as we design a new game from scratch. My goal is to bring the creative process of design to the forefront. Come join us if you're into wacky, small indie games, hearing designers talk about their process, or if you want to follow along with the episode and design your own game to one of our prompts. On today's episode, I'm joined by Jesse B. Miller. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Jesse B. Miller, a game designer in Chicago, working with Story Games Chicago.
Here at GameStorm, we take a mechanic, a design conceit, or a setting every episode and randomly spin one of them, and we take about 45 minutes to an hour and design that into a full-length TTRPG by the end of the episode. We'll get right into it, and we'll quickly spin up a prompt neither of us have seen yet, and we'll see what we get. Our prompt for today is co-opt existing board game pieces to play your game. So this prompt came from the games like Dread. And there's other games that do stuff like this as well. I mean, you could think of even... I think you could extend this prompt so far as to consider like games that use decks of cards and stuff like that within this as well. Like you're co-opting existing pieces that go with other games. But thinking of existing board games, the pieces that they use, and how could we co-opt those into a TTRPG? That is such an interesting one.
So I think to limit ourselves a little bit, let's focus on games people are likely to have and not say rewrite the rules of Gloomhaven.
Yes.
Co-opt the Gloomhaven pieces. So maybe just starting by brainstorming those games that people are likely to have. Chess comes to mind.
Yeah. Monopoly,
yeah.
The money from Monopoly. That could be such a funny TTRPG.
It's not bad.
piece.
Yeah, that's not bad. Also, just like tokens in general. Like I think lots of games would, like, Sorry, Monopoly, just like cool, fun.
This is why Jenga
bits.
is such a good one for Dread, is because Jenga is such a common game, but it has such an exciting... Like Yahtzee would be another one that's potentially really good here because like the cup plus dice.
Yeah. Yahtzee lets us just do regular role-playing game.
Well, you integrate like the cup stuff, and you can integrate the hiding dice rolls and stuff. In really interesting ways.
Yeah. The cup.
You're right. That is
the
a
cup
little
changes
boring,
things.
potentially.
Ooh, dice. Let's use dice. Let's do a D6 system. It'll be awesome. Monopoly has D6s.
Yeah, it does. But you could have a little hat and like a little thimble.
Right.
So, it's different.
Right. Let's think. What
Catan. I feel like everyone and their brothers got Catan.
I don't.
Okay, well, I don't even like Catan that much, and I still have a copy. I think I'm just sick of it. I've played too much, but I'm gonna put it down still. But I'll.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have Monopoly, but like I could get Monopoly so easily.
Right. I also think. What does Catan have? Catan has dice.
It has 2d6. It has resource cards.
Right.
For sheep, wheat, stone, brick, I think.
Yeah.
And then it has little pieces for the settlements.
Right.
And for the roads. And it has the little hex tiles for a map.
Right.
So there's a lot. And a little thief token, too.
Right. Right.
So I feel like there's a lot you could do with that, but it might get a little complicated.
Yeah, we don't have to use all of them either.
True. You could do like a world building game with Catan.
You could.
Pretty easily, I think. But
yeah, especially with the hex tiles. I'm not very familiar with Catan or the pieces.
Then let's stay away from that. What are some other really good common games? I mean, chess. The flip side, checkers. I mean, that's kind of boring, I guess, as well. But
I think a boring set could help the design process by constraining it.
I mean, checkers fits very neatly into like a token system if you wanted to just completely ignore the idea of like
two colors of chips.
Yeah.
And a grid of a specific size.
I do kind of the idea of like Monopoly money as a tabletop game mechanic does sound kind of funny to me.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how that would tie in, but it is.
I mean, yeah, a game about money. I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not coming up with many examples of games about money, but there's certainly stories about money.
Yes. I mean, a lot of older school like trad and old school D&D stuff is at its core kind of just about gold and treasure. It's kind of abstracted a little bit by just being about like dollars, but it's very similar in its conceit. Even if it's just
money
like
as experience,
a vehicle for dungeon crawling and stuff. But
I mean, game about trade could be interesting.
And you do still have the 2d6 for like a resolution mechanic if you wanted to use dice. You also have like chance cards. I don't know how
in.
Wait, what?
Wait, what? Oh, in Monopoly. Yeah.
In Monopoly?
Yeah. We're on Monopoly.
It's 2d6,
I don't know. I don't have Monopoly either.
I don't remember. It's been so long. It's 2d6,
one.
I think.
I do like the idea
2d6.
of taking a very bad board game and making a good role-playing game out of it. So Monopoly is maybe nice. And Monopoly is interesting too because of its sort of like pro-union social origin. My understanding is that it was designed to teach people the horrors of rent-seeking behavior in economies.
Because it was all about originally called the Landlord's Game.
Yeah, so maybe we can try to revive that because it does not play that way to me when we play it.
Now it's about becoming the best landlord.
Right. It feels.
How can you extract the most wealth?
It feels equally good to be the best landlord as it does to be harmed by them in Monopoly.
Is there any other board game that is... I mean, I think Monopoly is probably like one of the most well-known board games beyond chess.
Yeah, checker. Yeah, probably the most like well-known like product board game.
Yes, yeah. Because it's like probably chess, Baduk, Go, Shogi, like all of those like chess and very old strategy board games. And then like checkers and I guess there's also like, there's a couple of other tabletop games that are much older that I'm thinking of, but I can't remember the names of.
I'm no board game historian.
Yeah, me too. Okay, well, let's go with Monopoly then.
I like Monopoly. I think there's a lot there. We don't have to use it all.
This game works well with picking quick and going with your gut, I think. So
yeah,
Monopoly it is. Okay. Oh, so your core thought there was kind of trying to retake some of the history of Monopoly as more of a pro-union idea.
Yeah. Or anti-rent seeking.
So key pieces that we would like right off the bat know we want to use: the money, the dice, probably. Do we want like the house tokens? Do we think?
Maybe. Yeah, I think the game is going to want what the game wants, and we can't quite know what that's going to be until we design.
It's probably better to start from mechanics, I guess. I don't know why I'm starting from pieces.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, pieces can give us. I think it's good to have the pieces in mind as we're thinking about where we can go, because that is the constraint.
The pieces in a Monopoly set are board, money, dice,
house tokens, hotel tokens, player tokens, chance cards.
What are the other ones called?
Community chest.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
Cards and property cards. The chance cards and community chest cards are all like pretty Monopoly mechanic specific. It's kind of hard not having a copy of it in front of me to look at those.
I wonder if we could pull up a list of chance cards.
I bet we can. Because one of them is like, obviously one of them is get out of jail free.
And like So you could definitely like take some of them
Yeah.
and use
Right.
them pretty well, I think.
Get out of jail free could work in another game where jail and going into jail had other mechanics.
So we have
attached
like
to them.
advance to go, collect $200.
Yeah.
Like that could potentially be co-opted. All of the ones that are, well, so we have like advancing to different avenues. We could, since we still have the pieces, the property pieces,
Yeah.
we could just reframe how the game works around properties and have like advancing mean something different. Advance token to nearest utility, bank pays you dividend of 50, get out of jail free, go back 3 spaces. See, like the go back spaces, those ones
Yeah.
probably need to be removed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but it's good to know that they're there. Go back 3 spaces. Advance 3 spaces.
Unless we use the board, which
That feels. Yeah, I mean, we could do what D&D did with wargaming and just add a little story on top of it.
yeah, we could.
But
That
still
feels
just
weird.
play Monopoly. Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't feel.
Pretty much all of these work except in the chance cards, except for go back 3 spaces, because almost all of the if we had some mechanic that relied around like advancing to a specific place,
Right.
and then community chest has advance to go, banker in your favor. These are almost all like you get paid. Holiday
Okay.
fund matures. Yeah, this is all just like community chest, you get money. So those work pretty well, and then they have like a little bit of like narrative flair of like why you got money.
Right. And that narrative flair is maybe going to be hard to incorporate because
Potentially.
if it's if it's like draw a random one and it says something about the banker, like what if you just fired the banker in your story, or
And we could have those cards like drive the narrative in some way if we wanted. Like you pull a community chest card that says life insurance matures, collect $100, and it like is the starting point for a scene. But I don't like that. That's a really
that feels
bare
like
bones.
that feels like there's a film by absurdist filmmaker Louis Buñuel where he tried to make the goal for writing this movie and making this film was to change the point of view every time anything got interesting, or any time a story started to
oh man.
started to happen, the point of view would shift to some background character that didn't matter in that story, so that a story would never unfold. It's a weird experience to watch this.
That does sound kind of similar. You just like if you have triggers that pull chance cards and or community chest cards, and every single time it shifts to a different like
right. It's just
scene.
like some random thing that may or may not be relevant to some larger ongoing story.
Imagine how much you would make some random French film person happy though if they played this game that is like a love letter to that and is like a hack of Monopoly or whatever. Such a weird tie-in.
It would be a weird tie-in, but yeah, I don't know if that's the game we want to make.
No, I don't
We can put it on the back burner, but let's see. So, what are the things about a role-playing game that these pieces are suggesting to us? I think the properties are suggesting a setting,
Yes, something somewhat modern-ish.
right, and some specifics in that setting, in the way that Blades in the Dark does. Its
There's
setting.
also something really fun here in that there's a billion sets of Monopoly. So if you play the Star Wars Monopoly, your setting is very different than if...
Right.
But I think that works. Like, that's kind of cool. That means
that's fine.
You don't need a different playbook, or you don't need a different, like, rule book.
Play set.
Yeah, you just buy a different
just need
version
to-
of Monopoly, and, you
Need
know...
to pay Hasbro again
That's so much worse. But, yeah.
to learn how rent seeking is bad. You need to pay Hasbro again.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but how is rent seeking bad in the Star Wars universe?
That's definitely a story to tell, I think. But-
totally.
Okay, so I think the biggest thing is if the goal is to tell a story about how, getting amassing property and amassing wealth is bad, then we need a mechanic that builds around amassing property, or like
Yeah.
how that works. And we need a mechanic that like disincentivizes that in some way, or creates a narrative
Yeah. So I think
conceit that is negative.
Yeah, it's interesting. The way I approach designing role-playing games is not to start from the mechanic, I think. And I think I might be learning that right now. I think the mechanics in a tabletop role-playing game, like, I only want to add a mechanic to a tabletop role-playing game if it's in service of the story or of the conversation that the game we want to make happen.
Then let's talk about the conversation that we want to happen, because that's
Right.
so.
Or the,
for
or
example,
the story we want to tell together.
in the game that Colin and I talked about in our first episode, we started from the idea of if a new player is showing up every week. That was our prompt was a game that someone can sit down, like a new player can sit down every week.
Yeah.
If a new player is showing up every week, how do you create like fun experiences narratively, like in the conversation out of that? And so we started from that, not necessarily from an explicit mechanic thing.
Yeah.
So thinking about it that way, what is our like conversation that we're looking to create out of this? So is this like a thing?
I mean, honestly, I think it's this is getting maybe deep, and another problem that I have with game design, the game is going to get pretty big.
Sure.
It's going to be hard to stay small. But I think a game about, or a conversation about the American dream and what it does to people.
Yes. No, I think that fits well.
So like a story about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and getting, buying your first house and, potentially paying rent, moving out.
So something that just popped in my head from you saying that is, I need to pull up an image of Monopoly cards, but
Okay.
on Monopoly property cards, they have the amount of money that like stuff costs, right?
Yep.
So, and then they have like the rent increases and stuff like that. So they have like this costs. Yeah. So like I have an image here. So Baltic Avenue, that you have like the title deed, you have rent 4, then rent 8 with a color set, rent 20 with the house, and then so on and so forth. It gets higher.
Right.
So from what you're saying, my immediate thought process is to create some sort of game where it's about a character who's trying to like buy a home.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is like pull a random piece of property and that's what you're trying to buy or something like that, or if it's something where you have like a set of property in a place you're trying to purchase from. That's like my first thought of, and then the numbers that are on it are like the rent that you're trying to like make do against or something like that. And maybe the like landlord character is not the players, and maybe it's
the banker.
It's the bad guy, the banker.
Right. The GM.
And then it creates kind of what you're talking about, that sort of like American dream, like
Yeah. So in thinking about the American Dream game, I think we've still got a bit of a chasm between the story and the conversation we're talking about, and like the very specific Monopoly cards. But I mean, obviously the properties are just like, we live, the story takes place in a city. That city has all of these properties. All of the properties are in this city, right?
Yeah.
There's a, and are the properties actually just streets? They're street names, right?
Yeah, they are.
They're not
Vermont Avenue, Oriental Avenue.
Right. So they're not like specific properties on Vermont Avenue.
Yeah. St. Charles
It's
Place.
a street. So you buy a whole street in Monopoly.
You do. And then you're trying to put houses on the street to get rent off of. And then eventually the hotel gets you the most.
Right.
Is the like
Totally.
mechanical conceit.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about that in the context of this game, but that is a little weird.
Right. So there's streets. So the game setting is a city or a town with these streets.
I wonder if that means that players should. Well, so my brain is kind of thinking right now that like Well, and I guess we don't have to, because if we're just looking at the cards, the card literally just says like New York Avenue,
Yeah.
and then it has rent amounts for different amounts of homes on that avenue, and then a rent
Yeah.
amount for the hotel,
Yeah.
and then how much the houses cost and stuff like that. So
Right.
I wonder if it would be interesting for players to not play an individual character, but like a almost like troop play. Mm-hmm. Because or play centers around like a single street. So you pull like a street card, and then all of the players are like focused around that one street. So it's like all of the families
Yeah.
buying homes on a street or whatever.
Sure.
Or,
Like just like a little neighborhood
Yeah.
slice of life game almost.
yes, that's kind of where my brain was going. So either troop play and each player has their own street, or you do sort of like the
Yeah.
whole table is doing like a neighborhood slice of life thing.
It feels more cohesive to have the table play a neighborhood.
Yeah, I sort of think so as
And-
well.
Some of the characters in the neighborhood are owners, and some of the characters in the neighborhood are renters, and some of the characters in the neighborhood are visiting and staying in hotels.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That and it gives you a little bit of leeway too. Like we could even extend it so far as to like each color is a neighborhood with multiple streets, and then you could have some leeway there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like all of
Yeah.
orange is one neighborhood, and maybe like
Yeah.
two players are on New York Avenue and one player is on Tennessee Avenue and the third
Right.
is on St. James, but they're all
Right,
like,
but it's like
neighboring
like a
streets.
neighborhood story. I mean, and like there's really good examples of neighborhood stories in media.
Yeah.
I mean, even like parts of what is that mob movie? Oh, geez, classic.
I'm even
classic
just
mob
thinking of
movie.
like Friends and like all
Yeah.
the like
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
so many
yeah.
like sitcom-y things that are very
yeah,
like
Seinfeld is very
Yes,
like
yes.
here's the neighborhood
Yeah.
people, but like Goodfellas, the beginning of Goodfellas showed a lot of like how the mob sort of protected the neighborhood and was loyal to the neighborhood.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah.
That kind of story could be in here too.
Okay, so we have
Yeah.
the table is a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Neighborhoods are a color that you pick,
Yeah.
and I guess by picking a color, you also kind of would set yourself within a like narrative setting because they all sort of imply a place.
Yep.
So like if you're on the US board and you pick certain spaces, you might be like, oh, this is probably this place. Or if you pick another place,
Yeah.
you're like, this is probably like this place. And so you could derive something from that. And then on like some of the wackier, we don't really have to think about the wackier Monopoly boards as like a primary thing, but I'm just thinking like if you do play those, that would be honestly even better for that because a lot of those, their different colors are even more distinct.
Yeah.
So that would work, I think, really well for that. But
Probably. Yeah.
not that it, I think, should be a primary focus, but okay. So then, colors or neighborhoods that creates like sort of a slice of life
Yeah.
vibe between the players.
Yeah. I think at this point, if we're saying it's not a world building game, it's a neighborhood building game. It's a neighborhood narrative game. I think what we can do is start with, the choice of step one in this game is to start with the choice of what, are we doing Park Place, or are we doing the railroads? Are we doing, I guess you can't build houses
so
on the
weird.
railroads, but yeah.
Yeah, like, but you have like a weird railroad story where you're all just like hopping trains the whole time.
Yeah, that could be cool.
Why not? You know?
Yeah, that could be cool. Or and then a little bit of world building of what that means. And I think most players, most people who have played Monopoly some will have a sense of like the difference between, say, Park Place and Baltic Avenue,
Yeah, 100%.
and can sort of solidify that in a maybe even just like play a session of In This World about this place, but like a little, and maybe it's just everybody goes around the table and says one thing that is true about this neighborhood and one thing that is distinct about this neighborhood or false about this neighborhood or surprising about this neighborhood.
So sort of like pick the neighborhood and then
Yeah.
do some like paint the scenes and truths kind of things.
Yeah. Just to have a little bit more of a sense of place than Monopoly offers by itself.
Oh, for sure.
Than characters, and I think the story wants a range of characters.
Something that we talked about in the previous episode that we ended up scrapping, but I think is really important here is archetypes for characters.
Yeah.
Because even looking at like some of the slice of life media around stuff like this, so many of them have such archetypical characters in like how the media comes together of like, oh, this is the weird like bad boy character who's like kind of like mean to everyone but also like really charismatic.
Right.
And like this is the kind of nerdy weird guy who's like really funny and quirky and so I think archetypes are really important.
Quirky neighbor, like the not monarchs, not necessarily matriarch or patriarch, but
the mom friend, is that what you're thinking of?
No, just like the elders. I guess the neighborhood elders.
Okay, sure, yeah. I'm trying to think of the better phrase for it, but the only word that's coming to my brain is bad boy, and that's definitely not. Outcasts might actually fit that better, honestly.
Yeah.
I was like, but bad boy is not the word I'm looking for, but
yeah, and I know what you mean. And that character is often not the outcast. That character is often like loved by half of the or even more of the neighborhood and hated by a third of it or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's like charismatic.
It's
douchebag for
right. Yeah. I mean, write it down. Charismatic douchebag for now. I mean, we don't need to have the final words for all of this. Editing is a big thing.
I think this one will probably need a little more editing than the last one. This is a much harder prompt than the last one we had. So
yeah, and this is I think potentially a bigger game. I'm running into the same issue with the high fantasy game I'm designing, which is we're coming up with a structure here where we have each color is a neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we could decide to take on the job as game designers of giving a little bit more about each neighborhood in the way that Blades in the Dark does, without giving everything, giving 3 or 4 little flavorful details about each neighborhood and how they're different. And so now there's that writing job that we've given ourselves that we're not going to do in this 50-minute period here. I could see the tokens representing these archetypes. And if there's N tokens, we now have N archetypes to figure out and a little blurb about each of them. We're coming up with the structure of the game, which feels like it could work. This is sort of feeling like it's coming together, but also implying this like the set of homework to do.
You're always giving yourself homework. That's a great thing to learn after school. Is like it's a never ending.
Yeah. But I do like that. I think the archetypes are nice. And
how many pieces are there in Monopoly?
Yeah, that is a good question. And it does feel like the pieces could be a nice representation, even if they're just sort of symbolic. And if somebody like is playing an archetype, they just have that in front of them to
8
fiddle
looks
with.
Like
oh, that's pretty good.
There might be differences in different versions, but what I see here is dog, cat, battleship, penguin, rubber ducky.
What?
Top hat, race car, thimble. I don't remember penguin or rubber ducky, to be honest.
I don't either.
Also, in their picture, there's a T-Rex, which I also don't remember. So, I only remember the battleship, the dog, the cat, the top hat, the race car, and the thimble.
Yeah, that's, I think... Oh, the iron. We had an iron.
Oh, you're right. We had an iron as well. And maybe we did have a rubber ducky. And I just don't remember.
Maybe this is not...
Oh, 6 original. Here we go.
Okay.
Battleship, boot, cannon, thimble, top hat, iron. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
So there was no dog and cat. Maybe I've played a version with a dog and cat before, I think is what it is.
Yeah. So there's 6. 6 is actually pretty good for archetypes.
I think we should build it around the 6 and then just have a note that is like, oh, if you have more pieces than this, then good luck.
Or we can like, again, in the final, like if this turns into a a thing to publish, a section on writing archetypes for
Yeah,
your
that's
different
true.
pieces.
I think that's probably the better way.
Advice.
But even just saying like if these don't match your piece set, then just like apply whatever feels right.
Yeah,
right? Like,
totally. Yep.
What archetypes did you end up writing down? Because I know you were writing a couple.
Yeah, I wrote down quirky neighbor,
Okay.
neighborhood elders, outcasts, and charismatic douchebag.
Okay, I wrote down that one as well.
Yeah.
I think we're definitely like missing a couple that are potentially pretty important.
Young and innocent.
Oh yeah, that's a really important one.
And maybe that's distinct from young and dependent, but maybe those get merged.
So that puts us at 5. I'm thinking about like, is there something that is like a very definitive, like who's the strong? I'm like strong independent.
Sure. Yeah.
Is like that
Yeah.
feels like a really important archetype.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's the most evocative way of saying it, but
No, wait, that's
Gets at the
that's
meat
more
of what I'm
homework.
thinking.
That's fine.
yeah.
And then
But that gives us 6. We can worry
Okay.
about what they apply to
Yeah,
later.
yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Okay, so step 1, you pick the street/utility set if you're crazy, and you do some world building on the area. So name truths or do some paint the scenes.
Yep.
You make characters based on archetypes, and you take your piece that represents you.
Yes. And I think character creation might as well, just the conversation, right, needs a few hooks.
Yes.
So, and those can be pretty easy to get. It's again questions in these situations I find to just be magical. You ask questions and somehow answers spring to people's heads.
I agree. That's been a big thing in Vesta Mandate is we have
Yeah.
questions in our identity section, and it's like
Totally.
people just their identities become so rich when you ask like 3 to 5
Yeah.
questions that
Even if you had no idea, like literal blank slate, you just answer one question and then a few others. So yeah, character creation would have some sort of like trope selection, and then probably maybe 3 to 5 directed questions. No stats. I think.
No.
I don't think we're making a stats game.
what are the stats of the average American?
Oh no, the stats are money. No, the stats are
Well,
money.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So I think that's pretty much okay. I guess assign money is the final step after like questions.
Yeah, maybe let's think about money.
Yeah,
and
what does
how
that look like?
Because it's rent. Again, this is how we get to rent seeking, right?
How much money comes with a game of Monopoly?
Oh, I think a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
A lot, especially if we set the game in like the 1930s or something.
Yeah, that's true. 35. Ugh, don't make me pull out a calculator. Oh wait, is there a total? There's a total. 20,580.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
a decent amount, especially
yeah.
if it's set.
It's definitely an amount larger than 6 neighborhood archetypal characters would have on hand.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I think part of it is saying, and maybe there's a section about creating NPCs as well, but sort of something that's important to the story, I think, is who owns property and who lives where and who pays what rent, and kind of that creates a tangle of interests amongst characters. So some process for like just laying that out.
So it's sort of a who owns, who rents, how much money do they each have.
Right.
So my brain immediately, and I think this is the OSR games that I've played, immediately goes to, why don't we just roll for money? But then I immediately like push back against that for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
So like there's like an instinct and then like a sort of my brain pushing back against it.
Yeah.
But I don't like the alternative. Maybe the alternative to that is we create like 6 like presets.
I think you don't want the whole first session to be like who should be rich and how rich should they be,
Yes.
because also to me, I think one thing we could say, our game would be saying something, will be saying something about economics and about society by how we distribute money at the beginning to the characters.
Yeah.
Right. And if we do it randomly, that's saying something. And I might like what it's saying.
Well, it is pretty true.
Yeah. Right.
none of us get to choose the wealth we're born with.
Right.
And I mean, a lot of opportunity as well is. I mean,
Sure.
there's a lot of work that goes into it, but a lot of that
Sure,
is
and
luck
we'll
as well,
and we'll
so.
explore that through play. Right?
Yeah. I think that is where you mix the starting chance with the things you do in play.
And maybe what you're rolling for is your inherited wealth
Yeah.
to make the point even more clearly and even more directly.
Like the elders are living in like their parents' home or something like that. Or,
Right. I think another thing you could randomly set for the starting conditions of the game is who owns what property, who lives where, who's renting. I guess, who owns what property and who lives where are two different things that you can randomly set. And sometimes people will own one property and live in another. And then the game becomes answering why.
I just had a thought, and this
Yeah.
is not this isn't a mechanical thought, but a question.
Yeah.
Is this GM-less?
It's feeling that way,
Yeah, that's kind of where I was leaning to.
but not necessarily. It's weirdly feeling like Band of Blades.
Why do you say that? Because of the management stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like,
yeah, I can see what you're saying.
different people have different roles, and a player could, control that role for, we don't necessarily have to assign players to characters one to one. And just the idea that there's, that on top of sort of the character sheet, who you are, you also have this role as a renter, or this role as a landlord, or this role as an owner.
I get what you're saying. It's very funny to me to relate that to the idea
I know.
of being like the role of the quartermaster or whatever.
Yeah, this is not a zombie horror military game.
But I get where you're coming from. Okay, so it's almost like we need like a sort of like D3 table that is like rent, own, and I don't really know what the third option is, but it feels like there needs to be one.
I mean, visit. There's hotels, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe there's just like, this could be cool. I'm imagining the TV show now, where every episode there's some interesting stranger in town getting involved and not really having much stake in the outcomes.
Maybe instead of outcasts, that person is intriguing stranger.
Yeah, that could be. Or maybe that's an NPC, and there is a GM.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
who plays the people who don't have a stake in the neighborhood.
Sure, yeah, that would also make sense, I think.
Yeah,
because then you have someone who can do all of that kind of side of it. Which, if we're thinking in the framework of media, there is a lot of that, of like, the episodic structure ties into a lot of that, like, this episode thing happens because XYZ shows up and stuff goes down. This is where the chance cards could be really funny, actually.
Oh, interesting.
You have a chance card, like, kind of start the episode, or be like the prompt to start the episode.
Yeah.
Some of them I think would be really boring for that, but others could be really funny, like go to jail, do not pass go, do not collect $200.
Right.
That could be a really funny start to an episode.
Yeah.
Even if you're thinking in the framework of like an episode of Friends or an episode of Seinfeld, make general repairs on all your property. For each house, pay $25. For each hotel, pay $100. Like that framing right there, I could totally see if you're in that mindset how you could make a really good.
And that would want a GM, I think.
That also,
I mean, it wouldn't need one, but I think it could make it much smoother.
I think you're gonna hate me for saying this, but that also kind of makes me feel like this should be like a PBTA game. How quickly do you think we can write 6 moves?
Well, there's more homework, right?
Yeah, I know. That's why I thought you were gonna.
Okay, now every archetype has 4 moves.
Yeah.
4 special moves that they have, and we need 6 basic moves. Talk me through why you think that. How did your mind get there?
Okay, so I'll take a step back and say I don't actually think it needs that.
Yeah.
I just think it kind of pushes in the direction of sort of a Pasión de las Pasiones, I hope I said that at all correctly because I'm so bad at pronouncing Spanish. But it pushes in that direction in like themes to me because of
a
the
sort
like,
of
back and forth.
humorous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the back and forth you could potentially have with like PvP moves the way Passion does.
Right. Yeah.
So that is something that like immediately jumps into my head as like you could almost do like Passion style moves in something like this and have the archetypes as playbooks where you're building off this idea of like the Monopoly style, and then every episode would just be episodic. This kind of fits the prompt from last week or from last episode as well, where you could do like every episode is like episodic. You pull a chance card, and then it's GM-less, and you just like go. You'd have to do a lot of hacking to make Passion style play GM-less, but it would be really fascinating. So.
Right. So okay. So I see. Yeah, I see how you got there.
Sorry, that was a lot of words.
It does. No, it does feel like Passion is relevant. Especially in the like deeply intertwined character relationships and effects on each other and sort of long chains of influence and expectation. And
I wonder if you could do that with a system that doesn't integrate moves completely, but just does like light moves, more like kind of how Blades does like
sure. So like a sort of single move.
Yeah.
With that's just mediated by questions. Rather than the actions in Blades.
And maybe even just like I'm sort of thinking keeping it GM-less because I like that framing of just everyone making the story together.
Yeah.
With the conceit of it being, and like maybe it just needs a GM. That's possible. But like
the
idea of having a table sit down, pull a card, and be like, today's episode of Monopoly. Or whatever is really funny to me, and I like the idea of people just being able to sit down and be like, okay, and then I want to do this, and there's some like disagreement around it, so then it has a role, and like maybe the table can decide sort of what would be position and effect for Blades.
So there, I'm kind of starting to see the design question come into view here. I mean, obviously the question is, do we have a GM or do we make it GM-less?
Sure, yeah.
And what goes into answering that question? There's a few things off the top of my head. One is the decision itself is saying something about rent seeking, about society, about, whatever. And I think I like saying that there is no GM in life. You have to come up with it on your own. You have to figure it out with your neighbors. So I kind of like that about it. Something else, I don't really have words for this yet, but I am feeling like that there's something that we're giving up by not having a GM, and that is like the world is not just your neighbors.
Well, and this is the other thing, and it's something that I was thinking about as I was thinking like the Passiones style. Like it feels like that tacks away from having the game have some sort of social statement and pushes more towards a fun game of the week, pull out Monopoly and just like play an episode of a like drama
of a neighborhood game.
Yeah, and like that's fine, quote unquote, if that's what we decide to do. But
I mean, I think it can keep a social, keep some social commentary in there by giving money power.
Sure, that's true.
In that conversation, and
build other mechanics around it too that like make implications and comments.
Right.
But I just wanted to mention that because that was something I was thinking about too. Is like I do think taking like the GM, which can be sort of that like negative landlord element, out does limit it a bit.
Something that I like about a GM. What it does to a game is it lets the players be a team. It lets the players have something to structure themselves against.
Sure.
That isn't under their control. And so and to be fair, I haven't played a ton of GM-less games, although I've played a few. It's it's a very different feeling when you can say, well, what should we give ourselves to fight against?
Yeah, yeah.
There's this sort of tension that is in this. Okay, this comes back to something that I learned in theater, which is never build your own design. So in theater, it's generally considered a bad practice for the set designer to also be the carpenter that builds the set. In that case, when you have your designer hat on, you're gonna give yourself walls that are 8 feet tall because lumber comes in sheets of 8 feet, and you don't have to cut it if you design the set to be 8 feet. The walls to be 8 feet high. But if there is a designer that knows somebody else is going to do the carpentry, they can say, no, we need it to be claustrophobic. We're going to make it 6 feet high. You're going to have to do that work and cut those things off. So there's a tension between the problem creator and the problem solver.
Sure.
That is kind of lost that I have found when I play GM-less games is kind of lost. And I think I would feel that loss in this game.
I wonder if what sort of I'm feeling is that rather than getting rid of the GM, it would just behoove us to make it so that the GM's role is very similar to the players.
Yeah.
That they also sit down at the table and sort of similar to what I was saying. They rip a card and they go, well, this week's episode is whatever this card is.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And I think that might solve what I'm feeling as well.
I don't think asking the GM to like prep a story or do any prep. I think like zero prep makes a lot of sense for this.
You just pull from what you know from episodic content.
Right. Or your job is even more like just to represent the troubles.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's and I think you make a good point because that can be a really big issue in games where you do want something that is difficult, unless the group is like really set on having those difficult things arise.
Right.
Okay, so let's go GM'd. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So GM'd, and I really like the idea of having sort of like ad hoc episodes. I don't know if it fully works with just the community and chance cards, but I think it'd be fun to try.
Yeah, I think so.
So
that's not a decision to make outside of a playtest.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
So I think we just say do that and then figure it out later.
Yep.
And this is one of those things where like when we write this up and put it on itch, we can keep it that way. And then if we end up playtesting this,
we make the rules to be like try out the chance cards, and if they don't work, write your own.
Yeah. Write something simple.
Those are the rules of the game.
So we've got like a D3 for rent, own, visit.
Yep.
And then we've got like a D6, because those are our only dice, is just D6, for what do we want to have, like a scale, or maybe it should be a D3 again, of like poor, middle class, rich, or I don't know. Maybe that's too narrow a scale.
Just like your inheritance.
Yeah.
So yeah, the one thing that we haven't brought in yet is the one thing we started with, which is the money.
Yes.
And so, I mean, maybe honestly, what if the money it was pure narrative. The money is pure narrative, but like the rule is your character only has the money that you are holding. Like you hold the actual Monopoly money that your character has. So if in the story you want to buy something, that is actually tracked pure dollar to dollar.
Sure.
And you have it in front of you. And just I kind of suspect, and this would need to be play tested, but I kind of suspect the fact that it's physically represented at the table will pull it into the story every time.
I sort of feel that way too. I was wondering, the thing that I was thinking was similar, but I was wondering if it would make sense to have like a group, especially if like the richer people, where it's like you actually have a lot more money that's not with you.
Yeah.
And this is like a resource that you can pull from, but it is not represented in play or something like that.
Sure.
Like just a sort of narrative thing.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't care about money, really. Like if you're wealthy,
you can just get more. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I kind of like
and then that's just like, oh well, shoot, I rolled the 1 on the D3.
Yeah.
My game sucks.
And maybe it's just like a 1 through 6 and it's just like amounts. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not sure, but
Here's a thought. The thing that happened to Monopoly is that like the originally intended message is completely lost.
yeah.
Right. In modern play. I'm guessing that that's because some of the players get to have the fun part and be the rich guy. So if we want to avoid that, maybe none of the players get to be the rich guy.
Maybe only NPCs.
Right. Of course maybe the GM is the banker.
Sure.
And the GM's characters, the GM can bring in those characters to which money is no object. Because of course that is in the world and should be in the game. But if the players all have to be thinking about money, but to different extents,
That's a fair point.
I think that could work. Or I'd like to see that in a test. I guess.
think that's a really good point, actually. The thing that I think I struggle with here is like, does this become like, oh, I rolled a 1, so I get $300, or oh, I don't know, something about that feels kind of weird.
Is that good or bad, maybe. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Does that mean it's working, or is it what kind of bad are we talking here?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. And I guess maybe the thing I'm struggling with. So I guess I have 2 questions. Because, first of all, you mentioned, like, do we frame this as, like, an older time?
Yeah.
I mean, we could just have a blanket rule at the top that's, like, any cost that comes to your mind, like a modern cost, divided by 2. And that's roughly what you should, like, go by as a rule of thumb, or divided by 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
And if that's what we're thinking, then we could say, like, the person who has the least amount of money, they have 150 on them. And that might be, like, all they need for the whole game. And maybe they don't have enough money for rent the next time, and that's like a problem for them.
Right. Yeah. I guess the costs all need to be balanced around what's written on the Monopoly.
Oh, you're right. Holy
cards.
Shit! I didn't think about that. That's a really important piece of information that I was not thinking about.
Yeah. So we'll also need a mechanism to determine when rents are collected.
Yeah.
So that suggests a sort of a play structure.
Oh, you know what we should do? All of the amount of money that people get should be based on whatever their rent is.
Ah, yes, of course. Because they will have chosen a place to rent that they can afford, or that they believe they can afford. Or they were when they chose it. Yeah.
Like maybe the poorest person, for example, like has half of what their next rent payment is.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting dichotomy. And that also works because
the richest person has twice what their next rent.
And it also, this is not the primary thing in my mind, but it also works if you're playing Star Wars Monopoly then.
Sure.
Because, that like.
Right. It's all relative to where you live, what you own. Yeah.
So it'll be like 1/2 rent, 1 times rent, 2 times rent.
Yep.
And like so on and so forth.
Yep.
So that means no one will have like a crazy amount of money.
Right. I think that's good.
Because even if you have 5 times your rent, that's like at most what it looks like from here is that would be like, so even for Boardwalk, that's like maybe $1,000.
Okay. Yeah.
On like an old school Monopoly
That's
set.
manageable.
Yeah.
That's manageable at the table.
And then someone who has half their rent might have $50 or $100.
Right.
So that's tough.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and then I just wrote a little note down that's like all costs should be like divided by 10 from whatever you think they should be, probably, because Monopoly costs.
Yeah. We're at the Blorb question.
Yeah, this is a tough one because it's going to be a little bit different per Monopoly game because different ones have different prices.
Well, it's also just like, does the GM just like look at how much money everybody has and say stuff costs a certain amount based on that, or
it's kind of what I think.
What sort of circumstances in the game are we imagining that money is being spent?
I'm thinking like you and the characters go out for dinner or something like that.
Right. So
Like-
the GM is like watching, like, oh, that's going to cost some money.
Yeah, and I'm not thinking
Yeah.
that he goes like, "Oh, you got the chicken focaccia. That's going to be
No,
$15."
right.
I'm just thinking he goes like, "Oh, that's going to be $10 from each of you or whatever."
Right.
And he someone says in the role play that they're like, "I'm going to get like the fancy drink or whatever."
Yeah.
And then he goes, "It's actually like $2 extra from you because
Yeah.
of that." And
Right.
that doesn't have to be like a hard accounting thing, but it can just be a thing that, like you
So
said,
that's-
directly
right,
plays
that's-
into narrative.
Okay, so this is starting to feel like there's always a point where the GMs and the players negotiate
Yeah,
the
yeah.
results
I sort of think so.
and the difficulty, and this is a way to do that.
So, yes. That's kind of
So-
what I think. I don't know
so
if that's
this is-
fun, but
No, well, yeah. That's
I mean, is paying for anything
we can do
fun?
that later.
yeah, that's true.
Right. Well, no, paying for I don't think paying for things is fun, but the conversation about how much that sucks might be fun.
Yeah, or at least interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of rounds out character creation because then we have creating your character, figuring out how much money you have, figuring out if you rent or own. So if you roll, we might actually want to make that a D6 table as well and make it like so that most of them are rent.
Yeah.
One of them is own and one of them is visit.
Sure. Yeah.
Because
So I don't. Is a PC going to be a visitor?
maybe not. Maybe that doesn't make sense.
don't
Like what you
think
were
so.
saying. I think
Yeah.
that is a reasonable comment.
Yeah. But a PC might own a hotel in the neighborhood.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like maybe,
so-
maybe one PC owns a hotel, 2 own houses, 3 rent.
D6 1 through 5 rent, 6 own. So then it's like pretty unlikely that you own because if you do, you don't have any
Yeah.
rent costs.
Right. Well, yeah. So the way I was imagining it is we would independently choose what properties you owned
Oh.
and what properties you lived in. So that because some people do own one house as an investment property that they
Sure.
rent out, and they live in another one sometimes that they rent
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. Interesting.
And so that gives us a little bit more variability in the setup there.
The only thing that I kind of struggle with that is that does take away the sort of like everyone having to pay rent thing. Like I do think it's fascinating if all of the players have like this looming thing, right? Like I think someone else made a game recently
Yeah.
that has to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe the looming thing for the landlords is something different, like taxes, or yeah, or
Oh no,
or-
somebody please help the landlords with their taxes.
I know, right? Or natural disasters or something else.
I just wonder if that like
Something else.
defocuses play, right? Like
Feels like we need to test that.
yeah, I mean I would agree.
But I mean, the simplest, if we do want to keep it simple, the simplest is everybody rents. Nobody
Yeah, that's
owns.
well, and that's why I kind of think it's like if you have a small chance of someone owning, that does kind of represent the whole like generational wealth thing of like,
Right.
oh, like this is my parents' house, or like my parents bought this for me, or whatever.
Right.
Where like you might still be struggling financially a bit, or whatever, but
Yeah.
you have a home, so you're in a much better place than other people.
Yeah.
You're not struggling with rent, and maybe instead of rent, you have a mortgage or whatever. But
Right. Yeah.
so
I guess,
it's just a little different.
Right.
And there's like, so that's why I kind of like that, because then you're not framing any of the players as landlords. You're framing all of the players as on similar playing fields with sometimes a
Yeah.
little bit of a sort of like
Yeah.
dial that makes like an interesting slight change.
Right.
That's sort of my thought process there.
Yeah, I like that. That seems good.
Okay, so after character creation, there's step 2, which I guess would just be the GM pulls a card.
Right. We get the sort of the focus of the episode, the episode's issue.
So that would be like, and it's so funny to me because I feel like in a lot of media, the issue of the episode has to be so big. But when you go back and look at like old, especially older, I feel like TV dramas, a lot of
Yeah.
times it is just like the most inane shit where it's
Yeah.
like this
super
episode,
mundane, but everything goes wrong trying to get it. Or
Yeah. So like,
yeah.
there's one that's like speeding fine. Like I could totally see how that becomes a
Yes.
sitcom drama episode.
Yes.
Especially if it's like the person who's struggling to pay rent gets the speeding fine, right? Like
Totally.
Suddenly that's really dramatic. Take a trip to Reading Railroad. We do need to figure out how advance and take a trip work. Oh, they go on an adventure.
Yeah. They visited another neighborhood.
Advance to Boardwalk. Oh, that actually works so well.
That is good.
Oh, that's so weird. I was not imagining that was going to work.
Yep.
Although Advance to Go doesn't really work now.
No, Go is the weird square.
Yeah.
Although that's not when rent is due in Monopoly, but that is the like, okay, now that's when you get paid. That's when you get your $200.
Yeah.
So we could use something like Advance to Go, meaning pay your rent.
We could, yeah,
or whatever.
Because a lot of times you get paid around when rent is due.
That's true. Yeah, that feels a little weird.
I think we need a mechanic that has that happen periodically as well, though. Yeah. Not just from the card pull, because if you're doing one card pull per play session, that's going to take ages.
I mean, in the story, it's monthly, right?
Yeah.
You're paying rent monthly, and so it's like, how much story do you have in a month?
So, step 2, GM pulls a card and figures out the episode's issue. We need to figure out a couple of weird cards, but for the most part, I think that just works.
Yep.
Step 3 is mostly just role play, figuring out costs, and resolution.
Yeah. It's like free play with the GM looking for special, looking for the costs of things, looking for things that cost money that they're trying to do.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. The GM's job is mostly to litigate if something comes up that's like a problem. Litigate is a weird word there, but
but that makes sense.
I guess like what you said, litigate troubles.
Right. Introduce troubles like for the neighborhood itself.
That's a better way to say it. Introduce troubles, litigate costs is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Right.
Introduce troubles, litigate costs. Doesn't that sound so exciting?
I mean,
something about litigate costs
how did Monopoly become the most popular game in the world? I don't know.
It's very fair. Yeah, somehow we picked it as our board game to rip on.
I know. So, no, I mean, kind of because of its weird... I kind of like it because of its weird place in culture.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. What do we think in terms of a resolution mechanic?
Yeah.
So, and this is where I think...
What sorts of things need to be resolved is a question.
I think 2 players who are in a conflict that cannot be resolved through just one player backing down.
Yes.
So,
yes.
I mean, it could go so far.
Or one where neither of the players are backing down.
Yeah. And it could go so far as like a physical fight, but I doubt that will happen very frequently in a game like this. I think more often than not, it would be like a disagreement where someone is trying to like convince someone of something, sort of like what we ran into in the game you're working on, that Western game you're working on.
Yeah.
In that one playtest.
Right.
That's a bad reference point because no one else knows what I'm talking about. But
let them wonder.
Yeah. Guess they'll have to check out the Western game.
Yeah, keep paying attention to Story Games Chicago. That will pop up eventually.
Yeah. Anyway, it's sort of like that sort of situation of like 2 players fully disagreeing, needing some way to resolve that tension.
And this is something that I see happen in play in a lot of games, where 2 players just want something different, 2 characters want something different, and their players sort of end up in a back and forth. No, here's why you should do it the way I want. And the other player says, no, this is why you should do it the way I want. And it really does just go back and forth. And there's no way forward other than the rest of the table going, what if we do something else? What if we go over here? But yeah, at a certain point, I think the GM can be looking out for those times and say, sort of bring the conversation up out of the role play and into what are we going to do about this.
Do you think that's a scenario where we need a resolution mechanic or just a conversation? Because we do have 2d6. We could do kind of like what I was saying, some sort of role thing.
So if we do a resolution mechanism here, it's going to tell one or another player how to play their character at a certain time. Like if they're each trying to convince the other, we could roll a die to see who convinces who. But then that makes one player go, well, okay, I guess I'm convinced by that, even though I, as the player of this character, didn't think I would be.
Yeah,
Didn't see it. Yeah, I think that's fine. I kind of like it when a game tells me what my character thinks sometimes in certain situations, and then I have to go, okay, now I have to integrate that thing into my understanding of the character.
I also think it kind of fits in this style of narrative, like two characters getting into an argument, and then one character like winning the argument with the group, and the other player kind of having to suck it up and like get over it.
Right.
Like I think that is common in these narratives.
Right.
So, and I don't even know if that needs to be complicated. It could just be they both roll 2d6 and whoever gets higher wins or something like that. You could put money behind it to boost the roll.
Yeah.
I did think about a bidding system, but
yeah,
I don't know how that, like, are you, in the narrative that gets really weird. Like, am I bidding money and then, like, paying you off to agree with me?
No, it would be much more abstract than that. It would be
I know,
like,
but it just feels weird.
I have more money, and that affects the argument.
Oh, I see what you're saying. The other people agree with me more.
The other people agree with me more. You subconsciously know that I have power that you don't.
Sure.
Things like that. So if I can bid more, I have more power. So it's just a sort of abstraction of the power that money gives you in social situations.
Does the money go somewhere though after you bid? Because if it doesn't,
it would have to.
Oh yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Either to the bank or to a player or something.
Right.
Like,
or you would exhaust it and get it back at the next rent time or whatever.
Exhausted your money powers.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's like you can't threaten to spend money against somebody with
No, I get it. It just is a funny it's a funny statement, like my money powers are tired.
Yeah, right. The simplest system would be like, sorry, you just have to spend it.
Yeah. And it just goes to the bank or whatever.
And it just goes to the bank.
I do kind of like the tying bidding into it, because then it does tie back to the money. And like you said, it ties into the idea of like, I have the like capital power here, which is something that we're obviously talking about as like a thing to shine a light on with this. Right. Obviously, there's something that feels kind of gross about that, but I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah, right. The question is, how does it feel to the players at the table?
Yeah.
Does it pit the players at the table against each other in a gross way, or does it let the players cooperate in pitting their characters against each other in a gross way?
The other thing that kind of comes to mind is if you're a player who just rolls poor, like at the very beginning, you end up in a situation where you cannot challenge the wealthier players unless by fortune or act you end up with a lot more money than them. Yeah. Or they spend all their money outbidding you to tell you you're being silly or whatever.
Right. What if it's not? What if the randomness doesn't come from the dice? It comes from the blindness of the bid. Let's say we make the bids blind.
Oh, you don't know how much they're bidding. You don't know
how much they're bidding. You maybe even don't know how much they have to bid.
Oh, but you sort of see how much everyone else starts with.
Right. But you start to figure it out over the course of the game as you learn these
That's
characters
very
and their
real
behavior.
In the sense that a lot of people try very hard to hide their true wealth. Both from a class cultural thing, but also from
strategic.
So I do kind of like the idea of everyone secretly rolling for how much money they have, and then explicitly telling people not to share that as this is how much money you have, but
or saying you don't have to share it. But you can, right? Yeah.
And it might behoove you not to.
And then rather than using, maybe it's a kind of modified. Oh God, 1 second. What's the name?
I also, while you're searching for whatever you're looking for, I also think that makes it feel less bad, because if you don't know what the other player has and you end up with a lot of money and you don't even know exactly what their rent costs, so you don't even know what their framing is for how much money they could have, you're incentivized, if you really want to win an argument, to spend a lot more, which means even if you're out arguing someone who doesn't have a lot of money and they bid really low, you don't know if they don't have a lot of money or if they just didn't care that much about the argument. And so it puts this whole layer of like that cultural social dynamic of like people not wanting to like show their hand of like how wealthy they are, which in my opinion is kind of toxic in a lot of ways. Yeah. But like that is a fascinating thing to comment on.
Yeah, and I think that's something I like about games, especially role-playing games. They give us a safe way to experience this kind of toxicity.
Totally agree. Yeah.
And have some, you know, build up some tolerance to it and some reaction, you know, to it and make decisions for our lives about how we want to respond to it in the future now that we have this experience with it.
Yeah, especially since you like can't get away from it in everyday culture, right?
Right.
It just exists. Right. So, yeah, that's very fascinating.
The danger is that the game turns into a sort of playground of cruelness and becomes kind of toxicity pornography.
That's a big thing that we've talked about with Vesta Mandate as we've been building it, with the whole like the way that the political system is built out in that game. It's like trying to make sure that it doesn't become that kind of thing and that it's more focused on like the aspirational elements.
And anybody can play any game in that way.
Sure, yeah, of course.
I do think it's worth including these kind of toxic elements for the other purpose, and I think that's maybe why I like role-playing games so much.
Sure, yeah.
But the mechanic that I was thinking about, the No Dice, No Masters from Dream Askew, Dream Apart by Avery.
I've not read it, but I'm familiar.
I've only read it, but the idea is there's no dice. It is PBTA. There are moves. There are strong moves and weak moves, and you have tokens that you can earn. You earn tokens by taking a hit or by, you know, doing something that's harmful to yourself or beneficial to somebody else, and you can spend those tokens on your strong moves.
Okay.
So it's kind of just it's a meta currency for making sure you can't just always use your strong move no matter what.
So how are you thinking that translates to this?
Well, the money.
Sure.
Moves, if we're going to go with moves have a cost, just a financial cost.
I assumed that might be where you were going with it.
Or opposed moves have a variable cost, and you just try to outbid your opponent.
Well, and we could also just not build moves into the game as a whole.
Totally.
But just have basically a single move that is an opposed move.
Right, the one generic move.
Which is just like, this is just you have a disagreement with a neighbor.
That actually is really interesting, because moves against the GM are opposed as well, if there's only the opposed move. That's true. The GM, we can give the GM advice for saying, like, how much money or like power equivalent does the world bring to bear here?
Yeah.
And so I can go like, well, I'm going to go to city council and tell them to remove all property taxes. And then the GM can go like, all right, you can try that, but there's the world will oppose that with $300 million or whatever.
That's such a funny like framing for an example.
Yeah.
Just like no more property taxes from some random dude who walks into
or like rent capping. Something like that.
Something potentially a little bit more likely to happen. Yeah, that is really interesting. And then my only comment with that is it might be good to up money amounts a little bit if we're going to do that. If you're going to be doing disagreements with people like all the time, it might make sense to bump amounts and have it be like the lowest is 2 times rent and the highest is like 7 times rent or whatever.
Yeah, I mean there's just going to be a ton of balancing.
It's a little fiddly
based on the money. And maybe we find actually there's a danger here. I think that if you just spend it, money just like is drained from the system the more you play.
Yes, there has to be a way to game.
We'll have to find a way to cycle it back in.
Here's the thing: your bids could transfer the money to the other party.
That's true.
which is something I thought of earlier, but it didn't really make sense.
Oh,
in
that's
that
really
context.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
then you have a disincentive to make
Oh,
your bid
yeah.
super high because
Right.
you're like, I don't want to, and it doesn't really make sense narratively, but like,
And
because if-
maybe, actually, this is interesting. Maybe no matter whether you won or lost, your bid goes to the other party.
oh, that is spicy.
So the strategy is to bid just a tiny bit more than them.
That is a really fascinating idea. However, I will say I do think that sort of idea gets into like fun game territory, and it
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
gets
yeah,
away
yeah, yeah.
from
Yeah, totally.
which I think is fine. Like
Maybe-
we have
maybe
an
they-
hour to make a game. Like that's,
Maybe they fit. Yeah, maybe they
Yeah.
don't. Yeah. That is the simplest way to cycle the money back in and keep it a closed system and not.
yes. It also, if we're gonna do that though, it almost makes me feel like we should have a much tighter starting amount tier, because then if you have someone who has half their starting rent, they start with like $50, and you have someone with $1,000, and the $1,000 person is like, well, I don't know how much they have. I'm gonna bid 400. Then that is just like an even flip of basically
Yeah.
what their fortunes are.
I mean,
which
that
is
could be fun.
interesting.
Yeah, that
and
could be
I think
fun.
it's fun potentially, but
Yeah.
it definitely doesn't really speak to.
Yeah. Maybe there are caps on how much you can bid. You know,
Sure.
maybe every move that is like low, medium, high, 50,
Oh,
100,
that's
200.
interesting. So what I wrote down is just a disagreement with a neighbor as like a move name,
Yeah.
and just a hidden bid. And I think we can
Yeah.
figure out like the
Yeah,
specifics
yeah,
of it a little
totally.
bit later.
Yeah.
But so we have a step 1, which is creating a character. We have a little bit of scaffolding for the whether or not you're renting or owning, and what your initial money is. And
Yeah.
all of those like specific numbers can change, but that gives us a lot of scaffold for like what the core of creating a character is. We have step 2, which is GM pulling a card and figuring out the specifics of the episode. And
Yeah.
that should probably be like they roll a d6 as well and like decide who the episode's about, because most of the cards are about a specific like person who pulls it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
and maybe it's just the episode like rotates around the table.
Yeah, I think
So it's like each player pulls a card and like hands it to the GM or whatever.
yeah.
It's about that person that week.
Yeah.
Because then the cards that are like, you get $50, or you have to do repairs on your home or whatever.
Right.
Those like make more
But
sense.
then how do you get the $50 and how do you do the repairs on the home is the content of the episode.
Yeah, and that becomes like the GM's purview. So then we have a step 3, which is our role play, figuring out costs and resolution stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the GM introduces troubles, litigates costs, and then we have our disagreement with a neighbor, which is our generic move with hidden
Yeah.
bids. And I
Yeah.
think what you were saying is really good scaffolding for the actual like bid elements with between like the GM and a player as well. So like I think it works
Yeah.
there too. How do you wrap up play? Is this just when the
Yeah.
episode comes to an end? Because I think all we need is a step 4.
Yeah, I think I'm imagining this now as very short episodes at the table.
Me too, yeah.
Even so, we could do like 2 or 3 in a session. And,
Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
and rent is collected at the end of an episode.
Episode or season or like
Yeah,
session?
episode.
Oh,
I
spicy.
think. So like the episode. Like what's one of the cards that they might pull?
Go to jail.
Go to jail. Yeah. There's a whole episode about somebody who is, you know, how they go to jail, how they're caught, how they're, you know, what they did. And then at the end of that, once we, you know, find out the answer to that question and we've played through that, we collect rent. I mean, I mainly say that because it's a natural, like this is the natural cycle that we have, and we need a point to collect rent. And maybe it's
I have a counterpoint.
3.
I was going to say, I really like the idea of collecting at the end. I just wonder if it should be end of session and we systematize 2 to 3 episodes.
Maybe
session.
you collect rent from the person only from the person whose episode it was.
That's interesting. Then it
And then it
becomes
moves on
like
to-
every
so-
5 episodes you collect rent.
You collect rent, yeah, or 6 or however many players there are.
yeah.
right?
That's really interesting because then it staggers it pretty
It does.
significantly.
Yeah.
Which is, I think that actually makes sense because that builds in your time to figure out how to get more money.
Yep. Yep.
I really like that. So play 1 to 3 episodes. At the end of each, collect rent from the star player.
Yeah. And they each end when you've answered the question of the card. I know the cards don't have questions; they're like they're directives. But when you've completed the directive, the episode ends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this game already has like, oh, you don't have full control of your character. Your character's going to jail in this episode. Let's just see how it happens.
Yeah. Well, and I like the idea, and this is something where like when we write this out to put on itch, I would add is like in the little GM step 2 section, I would say stuff like, okay, if you pull a card that's like go to jail, you should immediately be like, okay, give me a paint the scene. What happened?
Yeah.
How does your character go to jail or something like that?
Right.
Like start giving me adjectives and nouns. And
Yeah,
what's
and then,
happening? What's
and
going
maybe
on.
and maybe you say like, oh, we'll do a bunch of flashbacks to figure out like,
Yeah.
do the other players have any questions about that? And then let's
Or were they
role play
involved?
the answers to the questions. Right.
So like, and that's where like I think there's a lot of room here for some really creative, cool stuff. And I love integrating the cards. I'm so glad we were able to do that. Because I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
and very fun.
Yeah, cool. Seems like that's. I feel like I don't feel like we've written anything down that I could read and play. But
No, it's not quite there this time.
But I feel like what we've done is we've made something that you and I could sit down by ourselves and sort of map out how a playtest might work.
Yes. I also do think that we could probably I think I could get this to like a play testable version in a couple hours, just like writing out in a Google Doc.
Just doing a little bit of that homework. Yeah.
And I don't think every episode is going to be like our notes directly translate into something playable, because that would be so hard.
No, but we've laid out something that when described fully is playable.
Yes. Yeah. And so yeah, I mean we'll have to collate our notes a little bit, and so but I think that'll be fun to kind of write this out and get it up.
I do too.
It was crazy that our first episode that I did with Colin went so cleanly and came out with an idea that was so fully formed in a single. And part of that was because the prompt we got was incredible for like letting us sort of freeform an idea that was like relatively slim.
Yeah.
This one a little harder for that. So we should have just picked Yahtzee. We should have just picked Yahtzee. It would have been so easy. We could have been like, oh, it's like a little hidden dice game.
The OSR.
Yeah, that'd be actually a really cool thing you could do, I'm sure. Yeah. But so I mean, I think we got something cool.
Succeeded.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm excited to see what we can put together.
I think this is worth writing up.
I totally agree, and that'll be the goal with all of the games we come up with for this, is to get a copy of all our notes on itch, a copy of the game written up in like a playable state, and then if we do any future work, we'll probably put that on itch as well to make it into something bigger.
Yep.
Which, I don't know, if any ideas like really strike one of our fancy, then, we might do that as well. So anyway, that's a little bit longer episode this time. We had a lot more to talk about with Monopoly, but that's pretty much it for this episode of Game Storm. I almost called it Game Changer. I was just watching that last night, and that's going to be a difficult...
That is going to be hard.
Anyway, that's all for this episode of Game Storm. Is there anything you would like to plug before we go, Jesse?
Watch out for tidbits about a weird Western game in the future that I will not plug any more than that.
It is weird and wacky and fun.
I'm Jesse B. Miller on just about every platform, but definitely on Blue Sky is no space, no caps. And JESSEBMILLER on Blue Sky.
Awesome. Any other cool projects?
I'm working on pretty much 3 games right now, and they're all kind of in progress. Close. They're all just about ready to play test. One is the weird post-apocalypse Western. The other is high fantasy called Treacherous Winds, and that is actually the work that I've done so far on it is actually up. I will get a link on my Blue Sky. It'll be in like show notes or whatever. It's called Treacherous Winds. And then a cyberpunk, maybe it's kind of OSR-ish, game called Cyphernoided 2600. Those are the games I'm working on.
Well, excited to see all of that. I can very much relate to the too many things in progress. Thanks for listening. My name is Chase Kirkowski. You can find me on Blue Sky at CH Kirk. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend and give us a rating on your podcast app of choice. You can also find the accompanying game on the Story Games Chicago itch page. We'll be back next week with Sean 4 to dive deep on a new prompt. Bye!